I never thought a weekend retreat would turn into a courtroom spectacle. That crisp autumn morning, I arrived at my newly built cabin with a toolbox in hand and dreams of a cozy fire ahead. The scent of pine and wood shavings filled the air, and the morning sun glinted through the tall pines lining the driveway. Then I saw them, Karen and her HOA minions, clad in reflective vests, circled around a towering notice stand planted in the gravel. My heart skipped as I read the bold red type, "Notice of violation. Illegal structure fine $50,000 pending." Karen's voluptuous figure loomed behind the sign as she clicked photos of the cabin's facade. I strode up, tool bag swinging, and demanded an explanation. She lowered her phone, eyes blazing. "This cabin exists outside our jurisdictional boundaries. You built on land not recognized by our association. That constitutes an illegal build, punishable by up to $50,000 in fines." Her voice carried across the clearing like a gavel striking silence. The log splitter idler faded, and my blood pounded. The shock became anger, and I realized then that Karen had misread the property lines. This land was deeded to me decades ago by my grandfather and lay beyond the HOA's purview. I calmly reached into my coat and withdrew the original land grant, crimson stamped, signed by the county recorder in 1972, well before the HOA was even formed. I held the parchment at arm's length. "Your enforcement stops here," I declared, voice tight with suppressed rage. "This cabin stands on sovereign deeded land, outside your charter." Then came the twist. From the shadows of the forest stepped my old friend and land surveyor, Bill. He held up a high-definition drone photo showing the precise property demarcation lines. It traced my grandfather's boundary clearly. This cabin was fully enclosed in my plot, a full 200 feet past the HOA border. Karen's confident smirk quivered when Bill unfurled the printed survey. The crowd of onlookers gasped. The operator of her bulldozer glanced at the map, then at the cabin, and lowered the machine's blade. Whispers buzzed like angry bees. Karen opened her mouth to reprimand Bill, but he held up a secondary twist. He revealed that the HOA's legal counsel had recently resigned, citing conflict of interest after discovering the board's inaccurate boundary claims. That revelation hit like a thunderclap. Karen paled, her lipstick smudging as she pressed a trembling finger to her jeweled smartphone to call for backup. But no one answered. Even her minions stood frozen, eyes shifting between deed, drone map, and forwarded email from the ex-counsel. The moment ignited the panic Karen had long repressed. Before she could rally her forces, I pulled out my phone and initiated a live stream to the local news station. "HOA overstep in progress, illegal fines threatened for rightful property," I announced. Within minutes, notifications pinged across neighbors' devices. Curious residents spilled into the clearing, forming a ring around the confrontation. Some laughed at Karen's misfortune. Others shook their heads at the audacity of her overreach. My calm declaration, "Show them where we stand," sent ripples through the gathering. Karen's phone buzzed with incoming messages, screenshots of land documents, supportive posts from local officials, and a flood of outraged comments demanding clarity on HOA boundaries. The social media tide turned against her. Desperate, Karen jabbed at the notification stream, her manic scrolling betraying her panic. Then, a county sheriff's patrol SUV cruised up. 2 deputies stepped out and asked for the fine notice. Karen thrust it toward them. They read it, then glanced at the deed and survey in my hands. "This has nothing to do with criminal enforcement," one deputy said with a sigh. "This is a civil disagreement. Refer it to the courts." Karen's shoulders sagged. The deputies walked away, leaving her clutching her sign like a deflated balloon. The crowd erupted in murmurs. Some cheered, others jeered. But all eyes were on Karen as her authority evaporated under the autumn sun. Then I delivered the coup de grace. I invited Karen to settle this properly in court, where the evidence would speak for itself. Property deeds, surveys, HOA charter documents, and the resignation letter of their own lawyer. I called my attorney on the spot. "File in county civil court. Case number starting today," I said, the words sharp but measured. The last twist struck when the local TV reporter arrived and asked Karen for comment. Her stammered attempt to defend herself was broadcast live. 2 was only enforcing the bylaws to protect property values. His follow-up was lethal. And what if you were wrong? Facing fines yourself for malpractice? He asked, drawing laughter from the crowd. Karen's bluster gave way to tears as neighbors recorded her meltdown. In the days that followed, public backlash was swift. HOA board emails flooded with complaints, local news segments replayed her tirade, and county commissioners called for an investigation. The court summons arrived on Karen's porch like a gauntlet. HOA v. Homeowner seeking declaratory judgment on boundary legitimacy and a countersuit for malicious prosecution damages. As I stood before the judge 2 weeks later, I felt a solemn satisfaction watching the HOA's empty chairs at the plaintiff's table. Karen sat alone, red-eyed, struggling to assert any factual basis. The judge peered down from the bench, thunked a gavel, and declared the HOA's claim lacking in jurisdiction. A ripple of applause echoed through the courtroom, though softly, terrified of disrupting the solemn atmosphere. The judge then turned to the HOA's counsel, who sat at a separate table with confused and embarrassed board members. Not only is this claim dismissed, the judge continued, but the HOA is hereby ordered to reimburse the homeowner's legal expenses and is enjoined from further harassment regarding this matter. Failure to comply will result in contempt and additional penalties. The board members slumped, while Karen's face crumpled with humiliation. Outside the courthouse, the local news crew filmed her exit, cameras zooming on the notice of dismissal taped to the front door. When Karen stepped into the crisp air, her once imperious posture collapsed. Vinegar-voiced neighbors offered wry congratulations as she shuffled past. I stood at the curb, offering a brief nod of acknowledgement, an olive branch delivered with unwavering calm. In the weeks that followed, the cabin became a symbol of rightful defiance. I hosted open house weekends where neighbors explored the reclaimed retreat, sipping hot cider by the stone hearth as I narrated the story of boundary lines and civic courage. The HOA chastened, held an emergency meeting, and voted to revise their charter. Clearer maps, transparent notification protocols, and an ombudsman to handle disputes before fines escalated. Karen, removed from enforcement roles, was assigned to the new outreach committee tasked with fostering neighborly dialogue rather than wielding authority. I discovered her at my front porch one evening, holding a hand-lettered apology card alongside a bottle of maple whiskey. She avoided my gaze, but her voice trembled. "I'm sorry for how I handled things. I let power go to my head." I invited her inside for a drink, and we talked for hours about the pitfalls of unchecked authority and the value of listening. By the time she left, her shoulders had lightened if not fully unburdened. Months later, family and friends gathered at the cabin for a winter solstice celebration. Lanterns glowed against the snowy pines, and laughter waltzed around the woodpile. I watched Karen distributing hand-wrapped gifts, her earlier rigidity replaced by genuine warmth. At midnight, we stood by the stone fireplace and toasted to new beginnings. Then I posed the question one final time. Did my forceful stand and the subsequent courtroom victory restore balance, or tip the scales too far? Was it righteous justice, or a harsh reckoning that crushed one flawed but human opponent? I raised my glass and turned to the gathering. Now it's your turn. Share your verdict and set your own boundaries. Let's keep the conversation alive. The night erupted in cheers, but in my heart, I knew the true victory lay not in legal triumphs but in the fragile, beautiful process of reconciliation and community renewal. Plant your opinion below. Justice served or overreach?